It is now officially the month of March. In fact, we're well into the month of March. You know what that means? That means I am permitted to do another Edison Format tier list. Today we're going to be doing a fun one that I've had planned for a while, which is we're going to rank decks in terms of how difficult I think they are to pilot. Here we're just using all the same meta decks that I used. Well, not all these are meta decks, obviously, but all the same decks that I used from my metagame tier list back in February. I'm not going to be doing deck lists in this video because it's a hassle to switch back and forth between DB deck lists and the tier list, and you can just go watch that video if you want to look at the deck lists. Next time I do like a big metagame overview thing, I'll include deck lists again, assuming things have shifted as well. But for now, we're just going to be ranking these based on difficulty, and I actually haven't thought about this too much beforehand, so we're going to be going sort of by the flying by the seat of my pants. That's the expression I'm looking for. So anyway, let's start at the bottom this time. Actually, I think we did them in the other order last time. Let's start down here. Now, frogs. This is a deck that it used to be down here, but it's gotten a little bit more complex over time. That being said, you can play this deck at a pretty high level without needing to know what you're doing. I mean, like, the lines are not that difficult. Obviously, I mean, this is weird because this is a deck that I feel like I struggle to play well, but I think as a new player who just like picks up the deck, you can actually play it at a reasonable level. Obviously, and not like super competitive, but you can win some games with this deck without really needing to be some kind of genius gamer. So I'm gonna put it in easy. Like, summoning Kai's every turn is just not that hard, and sometimes that's enough. Obviously, there is more depth to the frog deck now than just that, and that's not how it's always been, but I still think easy is a fine place to put it. Gravekeeper, I mean, it's just some, like, dumb stun deck. Pretty much everyone plays this as some, like, Royal Tribute Turbo thing where you just try to sack your opponent on turn one, and it, like, never works, and it's super inconsistent, but it's going down here. I mean, I don't know, not a lot of decisions to make in this deck. Either you win with your cheese or you don't, frankly. Chainburn, this is probably actually kind of hard to play, which I hate to say because I hate this deck, and I think everyone hates this deck. I would put it in difficult. I think I think there's no way I could win with this deck. There are people out there that are way better at it than me. I mean, maybe difficult's too high because, like, is flipping trap cards really that hard? I don't know. There's definitely some difficulty to it that I would put higher than these two, so I'm gonna put it in mid. The fish deck. This one might actually be in difficult. I feel like this deck was only ever good because James played it, and he's like one of the most skillful players in the entire format. So, yeah, most people cannot play anywhere near that level. I mean, there's like a whole spreadsheet for this stupid deck, and it's like bajillion combo lines and whatever, and knowing which one is the right one. So I think it has to at least be it might even be up here, actually. I feel like if your deck has a spreadsheet, it's got to at least be in big brain. So let's put it up there. Black Wings. Wait. We're doing it from the bottom. My bad. Fire Zombies. This is probably just a regular old difficult. Actually, is it harder? It might be harder than regular zombies. But that might just be because everyone knows the, like, lines with the Diva Goblin in the regular zombie deck. I feel like most zombie decks maybe in the low end of difficult. Because they definitely do take a fair deal of experience to pilot anywhere near optimally. I'm going to put this in difficult. I think that's reasonable. Gadgets. Yep. This is one you see a lot with casuals. I don't know. They're very fixated on this deck for some reason because it's really easy, I guess. I see the appeal. You just summon a gadget and activate your 1-for-1 removal cards. And that's about all there is to it. It's like the definition of complete autopilot, so makes sense. Cat. Where to put this? This one's probably mid. There's some decisions, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like a sack fest of a deck where you're just like, do you draw Cat? Do you see Avarice at the right times? Do you see your Raikou, Kai's hamster stuff in the right order at the right time? I think decks that play a lot of, like, Raikou, Kai's Avarice just sort of inherently have that sack factor to them, and then you add Cat. to it. And it's just like, well, you drew Cat. You're pretty good. Did you draw Cold Wave? Did you draw? Well, actually, I don't know if they play Cold Wave, but like Brain Mind and whatever. Like it's just steal games, but the deck's not that easy, even if it is a little bit sacky, and it's nowhere near the sackiest deck either. And being sacky doesn't necessarily make your deck less skillful either. So maybe I shouldn't have even brought up that point. I feel like high end of mid is where I'm gonna go with for this, probably. Maybe, yeah, high end of mid, I think. Ancient Gear. There is not a lot of decision making in Ancient Gear, from what I can tell. I mean, you're just summoning your guys and attacking and hoping that's enough, and it's usually not. So, I don't know. A lot of the easy decks are really bad, at least that's how it looks like right now. I feel like that might change as the list goes on, but yeah. I don't know. You just like try to kill them. That's all you're trying to do. You're just trying to kill them, and it usually doesn't work. But just like slamming dudes and going for damage ain't that hard. There's not a lot of like nuance or thinking about like taking good trades or whatever. Like you just are trying to like you're just trying to cheese your opponent to death with big damage. I don't know. That's all there is to it. Sabers. This one might be big brain actually. This is a super complicated deck. All the like crazy lines with full helm and crashing the recruiters and whatnot. It might even be 200 IQ. Should I move these two up? I don't know. I'm gonna leave it here for now. I honestly put it above the fish deck because the fish deck has really like a bunch of combo lines that stem from one play, which is drawing Coelacanth, whereas like Sabers is just complicated all the time, like nonstop, no matter what kind of hand you draw. So I'm gonna put it above fish in the big brain category. Dark Gaia. This one's probably difficult. I can't say exactly why. Is it that difficult, actually? I don't know. Maybe it's mid. Maybe, like, here. I feel like Diva Hero is probably going to be in mid. They might be more, like, difficult, though. I feel like it's actually very important in these sort of hero decks to play very, very clean. I'll put it maybe bottom end of difficult. I don't know. I'm sort of unsure about this one. Let me know what you think. Machina. Again, it's kind of like Cat, where it's just a bunch of hamster, Raikou, avarice stuff, and it's just like you can mostly just draw on your cards and play in your card. There is a good deal of skill. I mean, this whole list is kind of weird because to win with any deck requires skill, obviously. So I'm not saying any of these decks are skillless or the people who play them are skillless. But in terms of relative difficulty, maybe high end of mid for that one. I don't think it's too hard to pick up for a new player or anything. So Frog combo, this one's probably 200 IQ. Like unless you live and breathe this deck, you just are not doing crap with it. So yeah, I think that's fair. This takes like the spreadsheet thing to a whole nother level, honestly. And you know, I understand a lot of people hate this deck, and I hate playing against this deck too. And it takes like 20 years. In fact, that's like another weird thing about this is like you will just violate the time rules for online gameplay if you don't like completely have this deck down. So I think 200 IQ is perfectly reasonable. Norlaris. I'm gonna be generous and put it in easy, but a lot of games, it definitely feels like it should be in this tier. That being said, there are games where you aren't just doing your dumb combo on turn one. In fact, most games you aren't just doing your dumb combo on turn one because the deck's not that consistent. So, we'll put it in easy. We'll be friendly. I mean, it is a dumb hand rip deck or whatever, but I think it's not quite as autopilot as these two. Dragon, Trap Dragon, Disaster Dragon is what it was called back in the day. And it's probably like about the same as Ancient Gear. I mean, maybe a little harder. I don't know. It's tough. It's kind of like a draw few or bust type of thing, but it's not really. I don't feel like there's a tremendous amount of decision making in this deck compared to any other deck. Like I said, it's like Resolve, Future Fusion, Turbo. There's not a lot. I mean, it's pretty clear how all your cards are supposed to be used. It's pretty clear what you're supposed to do with Red Med. It's clear what you're supposed to do with Drago and Mass Dragon and all of that. So, I don't know. You just flip your trap cards at the right time, and Yeah, there's not a lot to it in my opinion. Flamvell, probably up in mid. Maybe even like low end of mid. I don't know. This deck's not that hard. It's not as easy as these though. I feel like it really belongs with a lot of these mid tier decks. They play a lot of like flip monsters. They're very similar play styles and whatnot. So, I mean, yeah, you draw your Rekindling, you activate your Rekindling. You hit over things with Dog, you set Spy at the right time, you Kai's their guy at the right... I mean, there's some decisions, but they're not that hard, so mid. Dragon Turbo. This one's probably big brain. I really think you need to know your shit to play Turbo. I definitely wouldn't be able to play this deck at all. I mean, it's easy when you draw the crazy sacky broken hands, but you're not, you know what, you're not always going to do that. Sometimes you're going to draw these more awkward hands, and knowing how to like play out of that and buy time to combo and whatnot and use cards correctly. I think there is a good bit of depth to the thinking process behind playing this deck. So I'm going to put in big brain, even though it's kind of degenerate and everyone hates it. Glad Beast. It's going to take all of my resolve to not put it here. I almost named this tier Glad Beast, so just be thankful that I didn't. But I feel like Glad Beast is like a 1 tier of IQ above. Well, actually, yeah, it's like one difficulty tier above this crap. The decisions in Glad Beast are incredibly easy, but there are still decisions, I guess. So I mean, you know what? We'll be nice to Glad Beast and we'll put it in easy. Quick Draw. This one is probably difficult. Maybe like top of difficult, I could see. Because, I mean, the difficulty of this deck might be a little bit exaggerated and the complexity might be a little bit overstated, but deck is still relatively hard to play. There's a lot of decision trees, a lot of lines. It's maybe not up here with these, like, super Galaxy Brain, like, combo whatever, but I could see high end of difficult for Quick Draw. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Amaryllis. This deck's like mid. Like middle of mid. Like just the mid difficulty deck. I can see that. Yeah, I mean it's just like a mill deck, you know? I mean, you mill your good stuff, you're probably going to win. There are some decisions, like, you know, with the volcanic counters and how to use those and how to use your equip spells and what to discard and when to set what, but at the end of the day, probably mid. Kurez. This one's hard. It's maybe not 200 IQ, though. Like here. It's pretty difficult. This is definitely the hardest deck I've ever played. It took me like 6 months to learn how to pilot it, even like to an acceptable level, I think. So maybe there's some smarter people out there who think it's not so easy, but for me, I feel like this deck is hard as shit. It's one of the reasons I don't play it so much anymore. I just feel like it's too big brain for me, so yeah. Diva Hero, I said earlier I'd put it here. Is it harder than Dark Gaia? I feel like you have like more complicated lines than Dark Gaia with like the divas and then I don't know. Maybe it's probably about the same. Diva Hero beat. I guess it's more complicated than these. You do have like divas and synchro plays and stuff, and maybe there's like a little bit more thought as to when and how to use your disruption in this deck than with these. I don't know. We'll put it down. I think easy is generally these alias decks are like very, very simple, very, very beginner friendly. So, yep. Plain old regular hero beat, probably one of the easiest, most linear, most boring decks in the entire format. So going down in complete autopilot. Neospatian Diva Hero, probably just like the same as regular Diva Hero. Don't need to elaborate on that one too much. Alright, I think let's rate the fairy decks all at once here. So I think regular old fairy is like, it might even be up here. I feel this deck is beyond me. This deck is just way too, even like the best players misplay with this shit. There's so many like decisions and lines with all of your recruiters float into everything with what to get back with Dim Alk, counting fairies for Christia, when to use Orange Light, when to use Ana. It's just like Every aspect of this deck is freaking complicated as shit, and I don't get it, so I'm gonna put it in 200 IQ. I think that's fair. Enrise and Chaos Fairy and Christia Sworn are not as hard as this build, but they are still pretty hard. You know what? Christia Sworn's probably the easiest one. Christia Sworn's like got the sort of light sworn mill aspect to it. I think that makes it a lot easier. That being said, the deck is it's nowhere near as easy as pure light sworn. There's a lot of decision making and thought in this deck. The beckoning light plays require definitely a lot more thought than the other build. You can't just mill wolf and sack your opponent like that. So I think it may be up in difficult. I'm gonna put it up in difficult, and then this deck's more like, it's closer to regular fairy, but it's a little bit easier. So I'm gonna put it down in big brain. Yeah, I feel like I like having these three in these three tiers. This is definitely the hardest one. This one's like a tier below in terms of difficulty, and that one's a tier below that one in terms of difficulty. But I mean, for a light sworn deck, this deck is insanely difficult because I think, well, actually, light sworn's not that hard to play. I meant to say light sworn's not that easy to play. I think it's kind of like overrated how easy light sworn is. Because a lot of people think it's like down here, and I think it's more like up here. This light sworn's sort of a weird deck. I feel like it's very deceptive in the hands that it draws, because it looks a lot easier than it is, and a lot of people just look at like bad hands and assume that they've like bricked, or the light sworn is brickier than other decks, and that's not really the case either. It's kind of just like more like honest about when it bricks. I think I've heard someone say that, like, other decks will just sort of deceive you into thinking you've not bricked when in fact you have. So light sworn is not as like sacky and high roll as people say it is. So I think I'm gonna put it in mid. There is like thinking in light sworn. Like, it's definitely not easy. When I like watch people who are better than me play light sworn, they definitely make a lot better plays than I would have. That being said, the Christia build is definitely a tier above. I think that deck's much harder. This deck you can just sack with Milling Wolf and drawing, JD at the right time and whatever. And of course there is a degree of that in the Christia build as well, but there's definitely more thought involved, like the orange lights and the beckoning light with the fairy stuff, and not having Wolf to just carry you with your dumb free pluses. So this one's above this one for sure. Well, a zombie. I think we decided to put zombie in here earlier. Is this one? It's probably easier than the Flamvell one, I guess. I don't know. It's like tough to say. I feel like let's just put all the zombies in here. We'll say Flamvell zombies the toughest one to make Fitz happy or something. I don't really know if it's true. I'm not completely sold on the order I have here for mid, or for difficult, but I think it's like just regular difficult here. I think that these generally fit. These decks are certainly non-trivial to play, so difficult's a good level for them. The difficult tier is getting kind of big, to be honest. A lot of decks in this format really take brain cells to pilot. It's kind of great, actually. Kind of like that. Vayu is like a difficult, but it's not that. I think people overrate how difficult this deck is to play. I think once again it's kind of just like these mill decks can only be so high because they are just so like luck reliant. That being said, Vayu is definitely not easy. There's a lot of like different lines with the Greffer plays and the plague, and do you set up dad when to do your stuff. So yeah, I think difficult's fine. Man, that difficult tier though, growing. It's getting big. Blackwing. People like to say this deck is hard, and they're coping. This deck is easy. This deck is, I won't put it in full on autopilot, but it's like hard to screw up with Blackwings. Like, its floor is really high in terms of just like how much you can afford to mess up. Like, I understand that there is a significant difference between playing optimally and playing poorly, but I mean, come on. Like, the cards just play themselves a lot of time. Like, they're just that broken and like that straightforward. So I don't think Blackwings are too hard. I don't think they belong up in mid even. I think they're down here. So might have pissed people off with some of these choices I put in easy tier, honestly, but looking back, but I think Generally, I agree with most of this stuff that I've ranked down. The only thing I'm a little confused by is what the order of the difficult decks should be. Not really sure on that, but I think I'm pretty confident about the tier that I put these in. And generally, I'm pretty confident about the tier that I put most of these in. So let me know, what do you guys think the hardest deck to play in Edison format is? Give me all your opinions in the comments. Tell me I'm an idiot and then I'm wrong and then I put everything in the wrong place. If that's how you feel. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, become a member, share the video, all that stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.